It starts with a rustling in the branches, a crackle in the undergrowth, and a whisper of war on the wind. These are the warning signs given to any who would bring destruction to nature under the protection of the Sylvaneth. Led by Alarielle the Everqueen, these forest spirits are the guardians of nature, using their bodies of gnarled wood and shimmering souls to protect the wild places of the mortal realms. During the Age of Myth, the Sylvaneth spread out across the mortal realms, led by their Everqueen on a quest of growth and life. Whilst Alarielle didn't exactly see eye to eye with Nagash, the Lord of Death did not create any conflict with this crusade of life, seeing that for every seed planted and nurtured, eventually even the best cared organisms succumbed in time to his domain. The Sylvaneth came to know the land, and the lands learnt the Sylvaneth in return. So great was their connection that the land began to share in their unique language, and they became together as a part of a greater whole. This only caused them more pain, however, as when the pantheon of gods began to break apart and the mortals of the lands began to exploit nature more and more, Sylvaneth felt the pain of the land, and were repulsed by the greed of the mortals they had previously assisted in nurturing the forests. As the taint of chaos began to push the men of the realms to desire more, they began to take more than nature had to offer, even taking to fighting with their Sylvaneth allies, confused as to why the Guardians would deny them the natural resources clearly abundant around them. The spirit song that connects the Sylvaneth began to weaken, and those not within the realm of life, Ghyran, even turned to madness as the chaos around them left them completely cut off from the Song of the Worlds. When the forces of Nurgle, the chaos god of decay, invaded in full into Ghyran, they found the Sylvaneth distraught, their weakened numbers defending a grief-stricken and betrayed Everqueen. Whilst the Sylvaneth fought valiantly, each torn down totem stone, burned ancient oak, and poisoned sacred wellspring weakened their strength, and they were slowly beaten back into the heart of Ghyran. Unwilling to become a prisoner of Nurgle, and unable to watch her realm die any longer, Alarielle retreated into the Aethelward, a pocket plane that only she had access to. There she hid while the remaining Sylvaneth fought hit-and-run battles, their soul pods, the means of their reproduction, destroyed by the forces of Nurgle. It was there where Alarielle remained, until the Stormcast came searching for her during the Realmgate Wars. As they crashed their way through the forces of Nurgle, the storm host of the Hallowed Knights came across an entrance to the Aethelward, and opened this gateway into the Everqueen's personal paradise. Unfortunately, they did not only make their own way to Alarielle, they also let in the forces of Nurgle. As their taint spread to this last bastion of hope, the last shred of the Everqueen's heart broke, and she succumbed into her sorrow. Dwindling into a glowing soul pod of her own, she was scooped up by the Lady of Vines, and carried to safety while the Stormcast fought to protect her retreat in the arms of her trusted handmaiden. Whilst the Lady of Vines was cut down by the harrying forces of Nurgle, Alarielle herself was carried forth and planted at Blackstone Ridge, an area of Ghyran that the Stormcast had been able to reclaim from the forces of Chaos. For 1 year she grew there, drawing in the knowledge and the memories of the land. Echoes of victories over Chaos filled her with might and courage, and the screams of the Twisted Land filled her with rage. The spirit song, long quiet, began to rise, the call for blood reaching a crescendo as the Queen of the Radiant Wood burst free from her chrysalis. Calling out for her children, soul pods grew and awoke, and an army of Sylvaneth made from these fresh recruits, and those who still stood the fight against Chaos, marched to her side. Alarielle mourned the loss of the Lady of Vines, and cut from herself her own left arm, using her newly renewed powers to grow and rebirth her into existence. She was now connected to Alarielle through blood and bond, becoming once more her most trusted general, armed with a spear crafted from a splinter of Alarielle's own. Together with the forces of the Stormcast Eternals, they marched on the realm gate that connects Ghyran and the 8 Points. After a decade of fighting and death, the Genesis realm gate was closed shut, sealed from the touch of Archaon. Ghyran was finally able to begin to rebuild and reclaim that which had been destroyed by Nurgle. We'll do a full dive into the Realm Gate Wars in the future, but for now, we're up to date on how the Sylvaneth were brought into the Age of Sigmar. Whilst the war groves of the Sylvaneth are strongest within the bounds of the Realm of Life, their trees and spirits march across all of the realms, taking the fight to any who would abuse nature, a bit like an army of Loraxes with shotguns. Not only do they speak for the trees, they talk with and through them, being able to communicate with one another via the spirit song across the various realms. This is even more true as of late, with Alarielle having completed her ritual upon the withered and gnarled remains of the Oak of Ages Past. Upon this remnant of the ancient world tree, she enacted the Rite of Life, sending ripples of life energy throughout the mortal realms across the spirit song. Her war song revenants carried this strengthened beat, their waypipes repeating the strengthening tune of the forest for all to hear. So powerful was this rite that the life energy unleashed was able to resurrect the Oak of Ages Past, previously thought to have been completely killed by Nurgle. With her seat of power restored, her armies strengthened, and Nagash having been recently beaten down by Teclis, it's currently looking up for the Everqueen and the Sylvaneth as a whole. Obviously, there's always some other threat around the corner, but Kragnos aside, things are looking better than they have since the Age of Myth for these woodland spirits. Although it might seem strange to outsiders, Sylvaneth society is incredibly structured. Each forest spirit, from dryads to the oldest ancient tree lords, have their place, knowing instinctively their role to fulfill for the harmony of their surroundings. This isn't a replication of the empires of man, with the children of Alarielle feeling no need for the systems of land domination that create kings and emperors. Instead, these are functions required for the betterment of their peers, a task passed down through the generations via Lamentiri. Within each Sylvaneth that is grown from a glade soul pod grove lie these small soul seeds, repositories of knowledge and memories of those Sylvaneth that came before them. As a Sylvaneth dies, their Lamentiri is harvested and replanted within the soul pods, where it germinates into a replacement for those lost. In this way, the forest is capable of regrowing their needed parts, and never forgets those who caused it harm in the past. Whilst the Sylvaneth as a whole believe in forgiving but not forgetting, there are some amongst their number who simply run out of forgiveness. These spiteful and twisted spirits become outcasts of their glades, no longer able to live in harmony with their less bloodthirsty brethren. Greatest amongst their number is the ancient spirit Dryka Hamendreth. Despite having betrayed Alarielle in the world that was, Dryka's soul pod was saved by the Everqueen in those end times, knowing that the betrayal wasn't out of malice, but that Dryka believed that what they did was in the best interests of the forest. It was during the end days of hope, before the Everqueen retreated into the Athelward, that she planted this seed in the Cursed Gorge, and allowed it to grow into the monstrous form of twisted bark and whipping vines. Dryka is the necessary rage of the forest required to complement the benevolent love of the Everqueen. Whilst the two do not see eye to eye, they understand that they are two sides of a necessary coin to ensure that nature withstands against the endless wars in the Age of Sigmar. To Drycha, her fight is with any and all who would trespass into Gyron. Her screams of endless rage at the destruction and disease spread across that which was made to be an endless beauty shake even the Sylvaneth to their core, and it attracts other spirits of spite, and those Sylvaneth twisted by the hate that comes with fighting the war of life for the entirety of the Age of Chaos. In the mind of Drycha, it is too late for those not of the Sylvaneth. They have proven themselves to be enemies of nature, and it is down to those who wish to live in nature to come forth and make amends. Otherwise, all will eventually feel the retribution of the forests for their past mistakes and transgressions. Not to be mistaken as an easy target, the goddess of life and the Sylvaneth that she leads are a truly powerful force to be reckoned with. Where they go, the forest follows, and none face an easy fight when the Wargroves declare you an enemy of nature. Whether it's Alarielle, Drycha, or any of the other leaders of the various Wargroves of the Sylvaneth that you provoke, prepare yourself for a fight against the very land itself. There's still so much awesome lore to cover for the Sylvaneth, with more story behind Alarielle and Drycha, as well as some awesome stories from the Realmgate Wars. That'll all have to wait for the time being though, so keep an eye on the channel for any future Sylvaneth videos. If you've enjoyed this video though, consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us to continue what we're doing. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.